It's not easy to stand out when you're a game living in an oversaturated genre filled with half-assed clones and wannabes. But Don't Starve really managed to make its mark, and to this day still remains an impressive example of what survival games can be. When it comes to Don't Starve, I think the first thing that anyone thinks of is its unique art style and sound design. Unlike most games in the survival genre, which either go for a retro, pixelated, or a realistic look, Don't Starve has a really cool looking cartoony art style, and a backdrop that looks like a painting of sorts, all with a color scheme that makes it feel, well, vintage. It's a massive breath of fresh air compared to some of the other games in this genre. It's unusual that I find a game that I can have fun just watching my character walk around the environment. This game's art and animation is just so charming, enough so that I'd say it's definitely one of the game's defining features. Also paired with the great art and animation is the great sound design. From the music to the sound effects, Don't Starve's sound is incredibly fun to listen to. Every item and creature all have exaggerated sounds that you might expect from a cartoon, and all the playable characters have funny sounding dialogue as well. It's very important that you get these kind of things right with your game, and Don't Starve knocks it out of the park, perfectly setting the mood for what lies ahead. This game is called Don't Starve for a reason. It takes the survival part of survival game very seriously. You've got all the typical mechanics you'd expect. You start the game in a randomly generated wilderness, and you've got to do your best to gather resources to stay alive. However, staying alive in this game is a bit more challenging than what you might be used to in your average survival game. There are a plethora of monsters roaming the world, and you're always faced with the danger of running out of food, and I mean real danger. Most of the food you can easily find doesn't exactly fill you up a whole lot, and it's hard to stockpile because it all starts to spoil as soon as you get it. And I can't forget to mention that the whole game feels like a race against time. You've got so many needs to fill and hardly enough time to do everything that you want or need. Also, you may have noticed this brain meter in the HUD, and that's actually a pretty unique mechanic, and also another thing that you have to watch out for. No, it's not an IQ meter, but rather a measure of your character's sanity. You can try and keep it up with nice recreational activities such as picking flowers, but let it drop too low and you'll surely be noticing some ghoulies out to get ya. And as if it couldn't get any more challenging, this game also has changing seasons as well. And you may have already guessed, but there's nothing more unforgiving and relentless than the winter. Your crops stop growing, the days are shorter, and your sorry ass is dying from frostbite, so you better go do something about it. With the harsh weather, the unforgiving landscape, encounters with wild beasts, the scarcity of food, and the goddamn trees trying to murder you, you've got yourself a recipe for your untimely demise. And if you die, well, that's it. There are a few different ways that you can use to revive yourself, but more often than not, it's lights out. Game over. But that's where the real fun lies, really. Much like other games with permadeath, your success is all dependent on your own skill, and how much you learn from your mistakes. So if one thing didn't work out so well that time, you can always change things up the next go around. And seeing yourself get more efficient and lasting longer in the game is super rewarding. It's a game of mastery. The game isn't getting easier every time you give it another shot, you're getting better. Let me tell you, it's one hell of an accomplishment to overcome the winter for the first time, and every encounter with a baddie carries so much weight knowing full well that the consequence of losing is having to start all the way over. It's thrilling in a way that it just couldn't be without that subtle fear that it could all be gone just around the corner. If you couldn't get enough from the main game, Don't Starve also comes with plenty of DLC to add to the mayhem. Both the Reign of Giants and Shipwrecked DLC offer tons of extra content, so you can expect your experience to stay fresh for a long time. And it would be a crime not to mention the multiplayer, because who would want to starve by themselves if they could do it with a friend? Don't Starve Together has a few slightly tweaked mechanics to accommodate for multiple players, but is overall the same tough game, except with about as much mayhem as you might expect from playing with several people. Honestly, this game has something for everyone. If you'd rather play with a friend, you can. If you'd rather go it solo, you can. Some people are going to get plenty out of the main game, and some people are going to want a little bit more. What's for certain is that whichever way you choose to play, you're bound to have a potentially a little bit stressful, but good time. So don't be afraid to give this game a go. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, but it's not often that you find a game that's so challenging and yet so charming, and one that pushes you to keep trying to make it further and further. I'm going to keep this video spoiler free because a lot of the enjoyment you can get out of this game is through discovering what the world has to offer. You know what they say, it's the journey that matters, not the destination. And in this case that's especially true, since the destination is pretty much always a painful and unfortunate death. Anyway, that's about all I got, so I'll see you in the next one.